All right, so I believe we are live on Facebook. Good morning, everyone. It's Tony. Can you hear me well, Lindsay?
Yep.
All right, beautiful. This is my message for today. Happy Tuesday, everyone. You know, you can probably read it. We need to be strong nowadays, right? And today I have the pleasure to have my good friend, an amazing human being, Lindsay Christensen. She is a mother of 3 children. And today, the subject that we're talking about is homeschooling and e-learning. And a little bit of background about Lindsay. She's been doing homeschooling for a long time. She does have a special need kiddos. And I thought to myself, knowing that, you know, I've got so much with special need community that I embrace, you know, just given my own personal experience with our son, you know, what better way to merge the homeschooling and the e-learning and really ask the front runners, you know, those who have really been doing it for a while, and for those who have really not been doing it and all of a sudden it became reality, right? So there's a lot of challenges, but Lindsay here with us today. I'm so grateful for you just to give us and share some tips, some strategies, you know, what works for you, what hasn't, you know, and what are some of the maybe like just the tips of the you know, that you can share with other parents, you know, that might be listening and joining us here. So just a little bit of logistics. If you are watching us live, please go ahead and hit the watch party button. You know, I really want to kind of spread this video to as many families out there that can benefit from these tips and strategies that we're about to share. If you have any questions, just kind of comments below, and I'll hopefully we'll get to them as fast as we can, or either today or maybe at a later time in the afternoon, or maybe tomorrow or the day after. But, you know, with that said, you know, welcome, Lindsay, to my webinar. You know, again, thank you so much for taking the time away from your kids. And I know you're homeschooling today, but take it away. Give us some background, you know, what made you decide on homeschooling real quick, and what are some of the tips and challenges that you see and you can share with others, especially who have not done it before?
Yeah, sounds good. So I started out homeschooling because I had my oldest daughter in a Montessori school, and I did. And sorry about that.
It's okay.
She essentially got kicked out because she seemed too stressed, was sensory overloaded, and just generally not functioning well in the classroom. She kept running out. So we pulled her out and brought her home. This was when she was still preschool age, since Montessori school starts young. And I looked at schools as we were moving towards like later preschool and into elementary school, and it just didn't feel like anything was going to be a good fit for what her needs really were. And I think I was just kind of coming to terms with what that was. So our homeschool experience has been kind of exploring how to better support her. And then now I have other kids as well. And homeschooling has just been kind of the best fit as we've gone along, just because we like spending time together and it has a lot of flexibility. So for us, it's worked well. We've also done an online program. So I do have some experience with that, though I think it's a little less structured probably than what the public schools are doing right now. So I can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. Before we get to the online course, I think that's a great idea. You know, how do you set up the schedule for the day? You know, I mean, you know, I know with Oliver and with our son Farah, you know, it's been very challenging because both of them have different programs, you know, but the 7 to 3 is just off the chart, right? So how do you set the schedule? At one point, do you realize that, yeah, it's break time, or no, this is time to study and we have to stick to the schedule? You know, are you lean? Are you strong? Do you follow a set rules? What are some of the ramifications, you know, if there are any?
Well, I mean, I don't know exactly how schools are structuring it right now as far as live content versus content that you can kind of tune in anytime. So if it's live, that kind of dictates the schedule to some degree. We haven't done any programs that had content where we had to be there at a specific time. So I guess the first thing I would say is a lot of time in school is spent on things like getting from one room to another and behavior management and getting kids' attention or dealing with kids who are having problems. So just know that the amount of time that they're at school may not be the amount of time that they need to spend on it at home. Mm-hmm. And therefore you have extra time to either support in challenge areas or to give more breaks or to compact it. I think it's going to vary from person to person, and just also whether there's live content that you have to be there at specific times. Because I know for my kids, they work best in the morning. We get most of our work done before lunch. And then in the afternoon, it's a lot more kind of exploration time, digging into interests, reading books, things that are a little bit more kind of open and free and interest based. Okay. So it may look different from your perspective, but I think you need to sit down. My recommendation would be to sit down and write down like on paper and not just go through in your mind. I think a lot of us kind of think through it in our mind and we never like really hash it out on paper. And I think the paper part is really important to say like, this time is important. We need to be, live in a class at this time. And we need an hour for working on math, or like, what are kind of the non-negotiable things that you're trying to fit in there? And I think the other part of it is like a little bit of a learning curve and just getting to know what your kids' styles are, because it may be different needs for each of like your kiddos, for instance, Tony,
right.
In terms of when they need breaks, how they need breaks. And some kids really just want to dig in and get it all done and then move on. And other kids need those more breaks along the way in order to be able to function kind of throughout.
Well, I tell you, one strategy we're doing with our special need Farah is he's nonverbal, right? So, mm-hmm. A lot of times it just his attention span is very, very short. So like mm-hmm. the other day, he was really insisting on going for a ride. And I'm like, I got to make him work for it, right? He's so motivated. I mean, he got up to my room and grabbed the key for my truck because I kept insisting that mom is not here and we need to take her truck. And he looked at me, he's like, well, there's your truck in the garage. Why can't we just take your truck? And I'm like, he's not talking, but I could read his language through right. his eyes, through his body language. But I was amazed that he went up and opened the door, grabbed the keys for my truck. And I'm like, okay, he's very motivated. And I posted it. In fact, I sent it to my family. I did not post it on social media, but, I was able to get some words out of him, maybe 2 rounds, but it felt like really 2 hours. And then, we hopped in the truck and we took a ride. And I was talking to Rita, and I'm like, we need to time that. And that could be a quick tip, maybe get a small timer. And, especially for the aggressive, kind of less motivated kiddos out there, just grab a timer and start the timer. Even if you get like 20 seconds of work, at least you have some sort of like a measurements you can go by, because the next setting is going to be probably 22 seconds, right? And, you get the gist of it. So I think that's a good tip that we're implying. And, I'm just curious, you have a different special needs. How is her attention span? Is it longer? I mean, do you feel you have challenges when it comes to like, okay, you need to sit down and we need to get through this? Or do you?
I think when things are challenging, then she's more likely to push back for sure. Okay. So for me, it really is going to depend on people's work schedule. Like some people are clearly trying to work simultaneously, and I do my work with my kids when I'm not at my job. So I can separate those two things. And so, I have that luxury, I guess you could say, where that's when she gets the focused attention from me, is when she's really struggling, so that we can work through it and she doesn't have kind of those struggle spots. But then the challenge for me has been to step back a little bit too and allow her to have a little bit of those struggle spots so that she can be working through it on her own too, and trying to kind of bridge that gap between like, how hard do you push? Because the other part of this is that this is a really stressful time for everybody. And I think it's really important to remember that, regardless of how much our kids know or don't know about what's going on, they're reading our emotional state and they can feel our emotional state. And I think we have to take that big picture view sometimes for them, because it may not be what they're working on even that's stressful for them. It's just like everything's going to get wound up tighter because they're starting from a more stressed state. And so just allowing them that grace too, knowing that we're starting there and they're starting there, and just leaving a lot of time for being together and enjoying each other, and also just de-stressing in whatever ways we need to.
Well, there's positive and there's negatives to it, right? The more on the positive is that, it provides, this is the new norm. And I think we need to really adjust to it. Who knows? We hope this is a short-lived virus, but that's a good thing about us, is that we kind of, we hope for the best, but we prepare for the worst, kind of thing, right? So safety is most important. The fact that everybody is working from home, I think, provides these kiddos an opportunity to really feel safe around their loved ones. So I think that goes a long way. I feel like frequent breaks could really serve all good intentions, no question about it. So great tips. I want to really move a segue to the online course that you mentioned earlier that you were taking. And what are some of the tips that you were able to really pick, and how can we share it with the rest of the people to just kind of get accustomed to, I guess?
I mean, I think the number one thing is just to get an idea of what the schedule is of that content, when it's being released, when it's expected to be completed, and having that kind of all in the front of your mind so that you can come up with a schedule that's going to work for you. So we got our content on a Monday, and then it was due 2 weeks later. They kind of chunked it in sections. So we tended to get it done near the beginning so that towards the end, if anything fell through the cracks, we still had time for that. Yeah. And we could get our work done early, and then just have time to do our own content or do games or go for walks, whatever we wanted to do to kind of fill in, and whatever we felt like, just our bodies and our souls kind of needed to bridge the gap between our brains and our being people.
Oh, that's awesome. I think it's definitely something new that we're all trying to learn right now. So, the fact that the teacher pops up in the screen, and start talking, and this is what you need to do. And, with neurotypical, it's a challenge, right? Because that's something new for them, let alone with special needs, we have too many challenges, and they really can't comprehend the video, the interaction with a laptop. And that's where I think it falls on the shoulders of the parents to really take it by the horn and say, okay, let's just bring it all together. This is a short-lived virus. Let's do our best, right? It's not the end of the world. Enjoy the moments, right? These are probably moments that were meant to be, that you stick around at home and be close to your family, to your loved ones, right? Yeah. Number one is safety, right? So you can't stress enough on that. So any last thoughts? I know I took enough of your time, and I apologize. I am so grateful for your time, but any last thoughts that you can share from a parent perspective?
I know one thing you had asked about prior to our conversation was just whether there were kind of any online resources. So I just took the liberty. I know in one of the homeschool Facebook groups that I'm in, there was another group that popped up. It's called Emergency Homeschooling. It's on Facebook, and it's all people who are now kind of surprise homeschooling, e-learning. Sure. And so there are people who are kind of in the same boat and may have, more specific tips based on similar schedules or similar needs. I certainly have homeschool tips, but it's a different, even homeschooling now is different for us because we usually spend a lot of time out at classes and out and around. And so I'm kind of relearning as well, but it's, I think, a great resource to be able to connect with other parents who are kind of exactly in your shoes, if for nothing else, than because they get it and it's hard.
Yeah, totally. Again, I'm hopeful this is a short-lived virus. I think it helps to be strong every day, right? This was great, Lindsay. Thank you so much for taking the time. I totally appreciate it. Please, you guys, be safe out there. My best to Dave and the kids, and stay healthy. And I forgot to ask you, are you working still at TJ's or limited hours?
Well, it's limited hours, but I'm still working pretty much full time. So
okay, all right.
I'm busy.
Well, every day. Yeah. Well, God bless you guys, and we'll be in touch. Thanks again. I appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thanks, Tony.
You bet.